time have we wasted this time?
Okay, we are live. Well, we're only 13 minutes late. That's not too bad for little Miss Amanda and her technical issues. But I have control of the PowerPoints this time, so they are ready to roll. And I know a lot of people have been waiting for this, so I'm excited. But I do want to, first of all, thank you guys both for coming again. What you guys are doing is the only applicable teachings that I know of that exist for free. And I don't know what the world would do without it. I mean, I was watching a clip this morning, Alex Jones talking on Flagrant, and he was saying, yes, he goes, Prince Charles is the direct descendant of Count Dracula. He's living in his castle and he's living with homeless children. Like, this should scare us. And I'm like, it sounds so funny, like, you're laughing, but this is the world we live in, and you're at the front lines. But the good news is people are starting to kind of see it, which means more and more people are going to be coming to learn how to clear this from their bloodlines, clear the trauma from their lives, and to be able to go out and act like normal human beings. So thank you. I have 2 questions left over from last week that I promised people we'd ask, and I think they'll be easy ones for you. The first one is from my friend Kathy, and she said she has some Masonic items from her bloodline. So they're like handed down items that were Masonic, and she wants to know the best way, in your opinion, to dispose of them.
Well, if she has access, it does help to get to like an incinerator type of thing, where it just goes into dust, and there's nothing left, and nobody else can get them and be defiled and whatever.
Yes.
So that's a very good way. It's just, if she's got some arrangement with the hospital or whoever, in her vicinity. I know here, Roly was in charge of a lot of hospitals. So, there was a stage we threw a whole, the what do you call it?
Briefcase.
Not a bag, the
briefcase?
suitcase, a briefcase full of regalia, all the little gold things, and that doesn't break easily with a hammer. So it was very good to be able to just chuck it in there. We had to get, the guy that works there, and when he opens it up, because it's very hot and they have certain times that they throw the stuff in, is to just be on the schedule and to try and get it in. But that's something she's got to find out from your side, so I don't know how it works in America.
Yeah, great question. I would imagine there's some artists that have incinerators too. So if someone can't get to an incinerator, would you say fire would be the next best thing?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
But, what do you do with gold? I know that they're shaped in the snake, so it's the serpent shape and things. But if they can flatten it, get a big man that's strong and that can hammer at it.
Melt it down. One of the jewelers.
They can melt it. They could melt it down too.
Melt it down. You can do that too. Yeah.
Is there any prayer or anything like that would be helpful to do at the same time, or just burn it?
No. I think she needs to definitely first pray the renunciation of all of that stuff off, so that she cuts herself free from it, because it's like something that hangs onto the family, and you've got to break the chains. So, if she can get rid of that, and also, just like prophetically take the stuff off. I mean, she doesn't obviously put it on, but spiritually it is on,
right.
Although it's in a bag. Physically, spiritually, she's dressed. So what's very important, Carmen, what God has been opening up is the crowns that they put on the heads. And you can actually look at what crowns you can buy and the different ranking that they've got with crowns. And so that is, the Lord has really shown us the importance of having that destroyed, because it's on your mind. It's a mindset.
It's the opposite of the helmet of salvation.
Yes, the helmet of salvation, as well as that Joshua was dressed, and then he had a dirty turban on his head, and they removed it and they put a clean turban on his head. So it's a dirty turban and you can't put on the crown of the Lord for good works.
Yeah.
As you walking the walk in obedience. Obviously God gives the crowns, we know that, but it's not. You can't put it on if you've got a Freemason crown on, or an apron or whatever. So it's good to just to strip off the physical, prophetically strip off the regalia and then throw it into the fire.
Yes, I like that. So
Yeah.
you're like also really focusing on praying for those things to
Yes,
like be moved off of you.
yes, and what they stand for.
Right.
Okay,
All right.
that's good.
Thank you. And then the second question was also from somebody that I know. She had just watched the one that we got the strike on, and she said that she's watching it, and all she could think about is how she had decided to no longer go to Catholic Church because she was concerned about rituals she doesn't understand or Latin phrases she doesn't understand. So she stopped going to church with her husband. She reads the Bible every day. She's still involved with fellowship, but she stopped going to the church. And she said that he really wants to go. He really wants her to go to the church. He doesn't pressure her, but she was curious if you guys believe she's making a good choice on that, or if you think that because they're married, she should go. And so that was her question.
Yeah, no, I think she's making a very good choice.
So do I.
The reality is that, and it's not really only about the Roman Catholic Church. It would be about any church where you understand that there is a flow which is really not from God. And so we have to be careful. We have to use our common sense. God asks us to use our brains. He asks us to make sure that we walk in unity. And the Bible says that we are one olive tree, which means that we are all part of a bigger community. So I don't necessarily have to be in the same church as you to be in the one olive tree. It implies that you and I are equal in the tree, but that we're different. And so the fact is, so there can be small differences between what we believe, because none of us are clever enough to fully understand what God says. So there's going to be interpretations, but you can clearly see if there's a wrong drive. So the Catholic Church is into the images and the prayers and the Latin, etc., which is crazy today. We should be talking in a language that everyone can understand, the common sense. That's why Jesus came and he used these parables. He said things you understand about seeds or goats or things like that, and that's what he spoke. So to be using a foreign language is crazy, So, and then I think there's some churches today that are really focused on prosperity and stuff like that. You'll hear false teachings. So I would be careful, So it's not just about the Roman Catholic Church. It's, are you at a place where you believe that there's the true word in spirit and truth that's been spoken? And if that's not there, then I think you must understand that we're not going to go to that church, but we're still in a community. And it's very important not to be on your own. That's very important. And I think often people get lost because they go out, but they don't go in. They don't go somewhere else. And that's the danger that we should be watching out for. So as long as she's got a community of believers, friends, etc., and she's really, really studying the word and flowing, then I think she's made the right choice.
Carmen, you muted.
Sorry, there was some noise in the background. The ice cream truck was coming through the neighborhood. So I wanted to avoid that interruption, and I ended up interrupting from being quiet. So there's 2 more questions in the chat. Can we do those?
Yes, of course.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. So the first one says, I have dreams of being naked at the workplace. I also have dreams of being late to work that occur frequently. May I get assistance on this? Here, I should have put it up here so that you could see it.
Sure.
Okay. At the workplace. Okay, why? How long has this been going on?
It says frequently, but he didn't say how long. Let's see if they JP, I don't know if that's a girl or boy.
Yeah.
But JP, if you're still here, go ahead and give us the answer. Oh, he said, or she said years.
Okay. A year. and did
No,
something
years, plural, years.
years. Well, okay, was there an incident that something happened and there was a trigger, something released? Because I mean, it doesn't just come out of the blue.
Right.
You know, there's definitely a root. So we're going to find something, you know, that something happened to him when he was small. So a lot of the
It's a
attachment
girl.
stuff.
It's a girl. Sorry.
Okay.
And then this is what she said. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I thought this might help you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. There's a lot of trauma that she's had. Okay, that explains a lot. One will have to go and find out what's the root. So we're going to have to go back into childhood and then find out. You know, what happens is if we've been sexually abused as a child, then what happened? And okay, yeah. What and the witchcraft is, you know, the sexual stuff and witchcraft always go together. That's how they strengthen witchcraft.
Right.
It's always working against the covenant. And so we're going to have to find out the childhood, what happened, what was involved, generational curses. Of course, we go back into all of that and get those doors closed. And then what happens is if those things are already active, you know, that's come online already. Now you're an adult and now you're at a workplace and you're surrounded by men. These things are going to continue to be triggered. But we're going to have to go back to the childhood to find out, you know, what was the attachment styles and how did you attach? Because a lot of times, if you weren't touched and hugged and held and your needs met as a child, but the way you were treated was sexually, I need you, by an adult, then there's a wrong attachment that's happening there. And then you look for that attachment for the rest of your life until Jesus heals you. So, you know, that there's one will have to sit and really do a proper counseling session to find out, you know, what is going on. But definitely childhood. Yeah. And it's obviously go even back. You're going to get generational stuff that will be added.
And then, of course, her reaction is what everybody wants: book a session with Minister Amanda. But yeah, like she's got quite the waiting list, and that's why we're doing these shows so that people will have the information and the practical prayers. And a lot of the themes are the same. You know, the situations are different, just like giving birth. You know, everyone, you know, ultimately comes through this stargate called the womb, but there's a million different ways that they come through. And so that's what makes it a little bit complicated and helpful to have, you know, obviously somebody that's done a lot of these. But Deborah gave her a contact so she can reach out to you. So the last question, and then we can get started, is this one, I think. Hold on. Nope, that's not it. Here it is. There we go. Quick question for Amanda, if it's okay. So polite. Any special precautions for survivors who are in their healing journey and they fall pregnant? How to protect the baby and the mom from further access? That's a great question.
Very good, but a very tough one too. You know, Carmen, we've worked with survivors that in our beginning years, we were still learning. I mean, we learn every day still. Every week we can add to our list and things that God has taught us. It's, you know, when you work with people, they're different, and then you draw a lot, you learn a lot.
Oh yeah.
And what they would believe and really trust God for, and I'm telling you, hung on to the Lord and said, Father, I'm working through my stuff. I've renounced the stuff. I've prayed through my bloodline, la, la, la. So, Father, my child, you know, if I fall pregnant now, nothing must touch my baby. And they faithfully believed. And, you know, even they would bring their photographs of the scan, you know, when before birth, when you can try and see what determined what the sex of the baby.
Ultrasound.
Yeah. They would bring those pictures and then have me pray over them and really dedicate the baby, which we did, you know. and then and we would faithfully stand with them in prayer and say, Father, you are the only one that can really fight this. But then we started, and then when the child is born, then we would find out, but the parents are active with the baby. There are things happening, and the disappointment is huge. But
Yeah.
to understand that if there's still legal right around, in other words, you're still on your journey, you haven't closed, all the doors that you can. I do believe that we've got more understanding now
Mhm.
to help the mommies, with the petitions and the things, and to really stand with them to get the portals closed and the doors. We know a lot more and understanding in the spirit world. So I think we'd be able to help a mommy to make sure that she covers things in prayer. But it's an ongoing thing. It's going to be a daily warfare. It's not an easy journey, but and then we've got to wait and see what the Lord does, because you've got father and mother and bloodlines, and so if there are portals already, and if they've already taken the sperm and the ovum and they've loaded them, then there's legal right, so I know who's speaking to me, so I just need to say, yeah, I think you're in good hands if you can combine with your therapist, and I think this is the guy that Deborah has recommended, because I work with him as well. We do certain people that we'd work together with, and he's really sharp. So he does, like he goes into before the Lord in a court case kind of thing, and he presents things before the Father. He's excellent. Really, the Lord has anointed him for that. So yeah, I think, Henri, I think we can do it. So you just give us some advice or direction or whatever, and set up an appointment, and give me a heads up when, so that we can be together and pray about it.
Awesome. I love it. Thank you, Amanda. And so I guess we're ready to roll.
Yep.
Which one do you want me to pull up first?
The first one is understanding trauma. Yeah.
And then just if you want to just point, or just tell me to turn the page or whatever.
All right. Oh, do you click for me, or I can't click?
If I post it, then I have to click, from what I understand. Unless you see a place to click.
I've got. I mean, it's not working for me to click.
Yeah. So just, you could just point or say next or whatever. I'll be paying attention.
Okay. All right, let's go. So we'll be looking tonight at understanding, and obviously there's a lot of teaching around trauma, and there's a lot of teaching around shame, which is also in Journey to Freedom, and Journey to Wholeness. I've done a whole in-depth study. I just got feedback from a lady the other day that said, with Journey to Freedom, she thought things were deep enough, and she was really crying and working through her issues. But she said Journey to Wholeness goes a lot deeper, because I really get to the heart and looking at your motives. And so also what you go through, the shame and the trauma that you go through, but specifically the shame part. And that shame was the very first emotion, negative emotion, in the garden, because God found them, Adam and Eve, and they were naked and they were ashamed and they tried to hide. So the fig leaves tell us about the shame. And so that was the first negative emotion. So that it's a very low frequency. So it's going to bring you right down and really pull you into a pit of despair. Okay, next one.
All right,
next one. So the first one that we're going to be looking at is the trauma. Trauma is not just the things such as war or death of a parent or being addicted or a divorce, any, horrible things that happen to us. I mean, Texas, the States are being hit. Europe is being hit now. We're being really, really hit hard. And it's to do with the weather and these flash floods. And I was watching how fast the river was rising in Texas. It's unbelievable. There was like no chance to get away. It was just so quick that things happened. And yeah, so we're also reading, on our media, what's, to try and understand everything that's going on. And then you also read about those that seed the clouds and that cause these things, and the spouts that are actually raining out of the clouds is so abnormal. It's the spout that it's just the single spout that downloads this buckets of, I mean, not buckets, it's more than that, water, and then all the damage and the destruction. But that's not only what trauma is about. So we call the big events in our lives, the horrible things, the rape, the this, the that, the accidents, things like that. We call them big T. So those are like major things that go wrong, in our world. Right, next one. The word trauma is the Greek word for wound. So it's got to do with a wound. So if you see the word trauma, then okay, there's this equal sign that says, right, something traumatic has happened to me. And there's a wound inside of me. And that's why I'm still carrying the trauma of whatever happened. Next one. It's a psychological trauma that leaves an imprint on the mind. So the physical trauma of the happening is gone. It's past. Like for the river, in Texas, that's gone. Okay, there's a lot of residue and all of that cleaning up to do. But what is actually the trauma is what's on my mind, what's imprinted on my mind. And I remember when I've shared this with you, when I worked in the prison. We were there on the Sunday, and the Monday, Roly left for Mozambique. Yeah, he went to Mozambique for business, and I was on my own. And I locked myself up and went to sleep. And about 2:00 in the morning, I just heard the blinds going, and
Oh no.
I couldn't hear the wind. So it wasn't the wind, because my window is always open a little bit, and it wasn't the wind. And the next thing, as I was lying looking at the window, the curtain was pushed back and this foot was coming in. So they had targeted me, and my first response was get out of the room. So I left my cell phone, I left my bag, I left everything in the room, and just tried as quietly as possible, like a mouse. I mean, that was instinct. It was absolute instinct to crawl out of the room, run down the passage, and try and unlock the door. And my hands were shaking like crazy. So we had a gate in the passage, also for protection.
Right.
But he's now on the same side of the gate as me,
Right.
I eventually ran through, activated the alarm, and I got help. But I want to say to you that the process after, weeks after it had happened, was worse than, it's still so vivid. I can still feel when I'm talking to you, you feel your body tense up and, things like that. So I really had to get prayer to get rid of it. So it's the aftermath of the wound that has come because of the trauma. The trauma's over, the guy's gone, and I'm fine. But it's what happened in my mind that was the struggle. And so that is what becomes the wound. So fortunately, I am in this business. I do understand what happened, the shock, and everything had to be dealt with. So I got a friend of mine has walked with me for years, and she went to war. And she helped me get out of this because, you even, it's almost like trauma shackles you even in prayer. You try and pray, but you feel helpless, you don't feel your prayers are going anywhere, which is not true, but that's how you feel. And yeah, that's how the wound, the whole thing about trauma is what happened with you in your mind, because it's stuck. It's stuck, and you're arrested in development. If you look at the picture, you see the little guy being whipped, and you've actually got to go and find the little one where it happened. And you
Yes.
need to speak to that little one, and you need to integrate with that little one. So that is important when you get to that place.
Yes.
Where you know, the little one who tried to commit suicide, wanted to die, who was whipped, who was raped, you stuck in a prison. And then normally when there's trauma, there could be shouting, there could be fighting, there could be, oh, you stupid, you this, you that, you know, and the words, sound builds a structure. Sound isn't just blah, 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 blah. It's a structure, because when God spoke, he spoke the world into being. He built the trees with his words. He built the oceans with his words. And our words have action, have got structure as well. And so we need to understand, when we are sworn at, when we are cursed, when we are, you know, people say horrible things about you, when they gossip and they slander, there are structures built around you that imprison you, that need to be dealt with, broken down, destroyed, burnt in the fire of God. And you need to get rid of that thing that's around you, so that you're not stuck in that prison anymore. So that has to do with a captive spirit. And I think you and I have done that captive spirit.
We did.
We've been going for 3 years now, Carmen. You know, it's
Has
a
it
long
been
time.
that long? I know. I think we have something like 34 or 35 videos. It's awesome. And it's
Amazing.
such a blessing, because if anyone were to come out of nowhere and have 35, and each one's probably 2 hours long, it is
Yeah.
such a master class in so many areas. But two things I was thinking about. One is like that incinerator for the mind, you know, those prayers are the incinerator. And then the second one is the word wound is also the word wound. And I would say that emotionally we get wound up. And it's the wound, and it's just spinning in there, and it does not stop until we clear it.
Yeah. And it also will tie you up to be able to grow in safety and security and healing. So it's going to hold you back. And then you get into marriage. And if you're a captive spirit, it's going to be awful, because every fight is going to be, again, triggers and take you back emotionally to feel, I'm rejected, I'm unwanted, I'm not worthy. You know, all of these things just repeat. And then you can't handle this, you know, and marriages split up, and because we don't understand attachment styles and we don't understand trauma.
And that means it's broken. When you go to the altar, it's already broken.
Yes.
And so how can the marriage work out with a broken altar? Yeah.
Okay, let's look at the next one. So if you're not meeting the emotional and psychological needs of a child, if, for example, their needs are being ignored, then you are wounding a child. And a lot of times, what is also sad, Carmen, is that the mother or father is not connected to themselves. So they're emotionally not connected. They are avoidant. They've just cut off and they've hardened their hearts. So their children would come with a need and they don't even pick it up. They haven't got a clue, because their needs were never met. And so you see the cycle, you know, running down the generations, which we call the epigenetics. And so, you know, it's just, if a child's needs, you know, you'd hear the baby cry, and then someone would say, oh, let them cry. Let them cry. You know, they'll fall asleep eventually, but don't spoil them. Because if you're going to pick them up and pat them now, you know, you're spoiling the child. So it's not understanding the needs of a child. You know, is the child hungry? Is the diaper, you know, got a problem? Whatever. But if the parent is disconnected, it's hard, because they don't even understand when a child has needs, because their own needs were never met. I was ministering to a couple, and she had a wonderful family, mommy and daddy that loved her, and yeah, now they're married. But he was raised, as a very broken little boy, not understood, never listened to, really like an orphan. And they both adults now. They have children. They living the life, and so they have a fight, and he's pretty upset and very angry with her, and she can't understand what's wrong with him. So he writes to her a note on her phone, and he says, "You had parents, I never did." And it's like this little boy, suddenly this was triggered, and it's not fair. You had parents that loved you, but I didn't. And so it was that dynamic, and then to be able to understand where he is and not judge him for getting angry and upset and whatever, but going to meet him where he is and loving him into wholeness. And that's what we can do for in marriage for each other.
Amen.
When
Yes.
you understand what the other person has gone through. So all right, then these small things, well, we say small, but it's not small, it's huge, but just not getting a bottle when you're thirsty or something. Um, they would put it under small things. And so this is like small trauma. So you have the big trauma, which is the catastrophes, the disasters that hit us. There's nothing we can do about it. It's just happens, accidents, that type of thing. That's big T. And then you have small t. So it's things that were not done to you, like your needs were not met, or things that were done to you, which was bad. And that caused huge trauma for you. All right, so it's just another way of describing a small t and a big T. All right, the next one. In the same way that a plant needs water and sunlight to grow and to be healthy, so too children have needs. And so when they need water, when they need whatever to grow, as parents, we need to understand that and be there for them. So it's important that, for young people listening to this now, before marriage, before having babies, deal with this stuff. You have such a privilege of being able to study this. There's so much out there that you can deal with it, get it under the blood of the Lamb, and pull out the thorns that have been sticking into you all these years and wounding you further. And so that when you get to marriage, and later on we'll be talking about your spouse, how would the dynamics work out between two people that have different attachment styles, not secure, and how they can destroy each other. But if you understand attachment styles, then you've got something to work with. And there's more grace because you've got the understanding. And so then you can have your babies. So please work through this before the babies come, because, otherwise you're just another generation that's causing more wounds in the next generation, carrying on with the cycle of wounding in families. Okay, next one. Unconditional attachment, connection and acceptance, which is your secure one. They do not have to do anything to make the relationship work. So it's not, I've got to be the best. I've got to perform to impress you. And then when you pat me on the back and you say, well done, then I know, right, I'm gonna get whatever is due to me. This connection from a secure parent making a secure child is because the parent has dealt with their own stuff, and it's unconditional attachment. I will love you through everything, and I'm not going to withhold my love for you if you mess up. I'm going to love you. I won't accept your behavior, but I'll love you, and I will not push you away. Right, the next ones, these are 1 and 2. These are a couple points that I put together. All right. They must have the capacity to experience all of their emotions. So it's important for a child to learn, okay, what do I do when I'm angry? What do I do when I'm fearful? How do I deal with grief if my animal dies? So they learn from mommy and daddy that's secure. How do I deal with the world and all the negative emotions? And so that I don't get stuck. When we spoke about arrested development, I said that many times we are stuck in the negative emotion and we stay there because we don't know how to get out of it. There isn't a pathway of joy back to joy base or joy camp where I can get back to joy and feel safe again. But I'm actually growing up stuck, angry, fearful, and so that controls me, and my adrenaline is pumping 24/7. And so that then will affect my immune system, and that will make me get ill. Every now and then I'm going to get ill. And so I need to create, my parents need to help me to create capacity to deal with my emotions, whether it's positive or negative. And so what we spoke about last time, Carmen, we spoke about the therapist that was telling the person, I'm going to put my hands a little away from your back, but I'm here. Now lean back. I'm going to catch you. I've got your back. And how she couldn't even feel the therapist's hands. I mean, was never trained. She didn't have the capacity to know what emotions, what must she do with her emotions, and couldn't feel. And it was only afterwards by the therapist catching her and holding her and say, stay there, that she eventually started to feel, somebody's got me. I can actually feel these hands. And that imprint, of someone loving me. And so it is so, so important that the child has the freedom with mom and dad to learn this. Free, spontaneous play to be creative. I was praying with a guy not so long ago, and he was telling me that that he was, when he was growing up, the spouse he married now had lovely memories with her mom and dad. So there was loving, and there was they just had fun and they had good memories. And so she had this dream. She wanted to show her husband one day what they went, where they went, what they did, and the memories. So when they got there and she's explaining, he's getting so irritated and he's getting, and she can't understand why, because she had this dream about telling her husband all these wonderful things and he's not there. And then he got so angry eventually, and she got angry, and he said, okay, what do you want me to see? She said, it's okay, I don't want you to see anything now.
Of course.
We backed each other all the way, and they just got up and they left. And she was crying and he was angry, and fortunately they're a couple that have been walking with me a journey. And so he went before the Lord and he said, Lord, what was this about? What's going on? And God said to him, it's not her problem, it's your problem. And he said, why? He said, because when you were 6 and the ages that she was talking about, your parents were so serious, you were not allowed to laugh.
Amen.
You were not allowed to run. They were not supposed to hear you. Everything was so serious, And here she's talking about having all this fun and laughing and joking and, and here he's remembering and he's connecting with that little guy. He could never have fun and laugh and never have that safety. Isn't that amazing? And here they are both grown-ups.
It makes so much sense. Yep.
If you don't understand the attachment styles, we really can hurt each other deeply. And then, you get to a point where you say, well, I can't carry on like this, and then that's the end. But if you had this knowledge and you'd had this understanding, then I'm going to release a manual around all of this, and I'm going to add all the stuff in about connecting with a different attachment style than yours, and understanding and what do we do so that we are equipped.
So
and
important.
We need to be equipped. Okay, next one, Carmen. Okay, how trauma gets passed down the generations. That's okay. It's okay.
Okay.
So this 95% of trauma is multi-generational. How's that? I mean, that's quite scary, and that's statistics. So it's, you never realize that it's so high. That's why we always start with generational curses. We don't start with you and what you've done wrong, but we always go back and we see, all right, what happened in the generations, and then it's not necessarily a gene that gets passed on, but it's how those genes are triggered or not triggered. That's the key of what gets passed on. And so if it's, let's say, the forefathers were in the concentration camps, South Africa had concentration camps before the Holocaust. And the English put our women and children into concentration camps here in South Africa. And so we also are sitting with the history in our blood, generational stuff, with trauma. And I told you about how upset I was with the Queen, because I didn't think, why does she think she's so important and all of these things? And I'm struggling with, and my mother-in-law was English, so I'm struggling with all of the stuff. And I'm saying, but I'm supposed to be a believer and a Christian, and I'm supposed to show the love of God to her, and she wasn't born again. And then, how does it work? What's going on with me? Why am I got this anger inside of me? And when I went to England, where my children were studying, I went on my knees on English soil, and I said, Lord, what's going on with me? And he said to me, he showed me the concentration camp, and he showed me how the woman from my bloodline shouted curses at the English guys because they were raped, they were starved, they died of sickness. The children, so many children died in those camps. So it was horrible. And that anger and hatred for the English was part of my epigenetics.
Wow.
It is what was passed on. And it was so real. I mean, that I didn't know why I've got this anger, but it was there because it was passed on. So it was triggered through genes that I received. And so the minute I'm marrying this guy who's half English, half Afrikaans, and then mother-in-law, is triggering all of this stuff. And I couldn't understand why until, you realize, okay, this is generational stuff that I'm carrying. It's not my stuff, but still it is because of the sins of the forefathers.
You're having to deal with it, so it's yours.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Okay, next one. So how does trauma, I love this picture. I think it's so good. How does trauma spill from one generation to the next? So you've got this full glass of milk, but it's spilling. And it's like, okay, the baby, you're just thinking of the baby drinking milk and how things just spill over into the next generation. So next one. Trauma that has not been resolved by the parents are passed on to the children. So that which mom and dad and grandpa and grandma didn't fight, didn't war against the giants that they should have fought, I'm going to have to face it. I'm going to have to fight. So the best inheritance that you can leave your family, your children, is fight your giants so that they don't have to fight it, and they'll be able to usher in the King of Kings when he comes, because they don't have baggage. They've dealt with all of that. Grandpa, grandma, whatever, they've done their homework, they prayed through their stuff, the doors are shut, and they are able to focus on the kingdom and bringing in the harvest, before the Lord comes. Okay, next one. So trauma is not about what happened to you. In other words, I was raped, I was this, I was that. but it's what happens inside of you. So different people deal with the same trauma in different ways, depending on the attachment. This is very interesting. So if what happened inside of you when you received the wound, when you were raped, there was the fear, there was the anger, there was, all of that stuff, that those emotions were churning. So it's not, you get over the whatever the trauma was. You eventually, the memory fades and you get over it. But it's what is still there, what is still going on inside of you. That's the key, because you're carrying it with you, and it's something that can trigger in any relationship that you are in. You carry it, forward. And so what happened inside of you, trauma is the wound. So it's not an event. Trauma is not just an event. It's you carry the trauma into the present because you're being triggered today. It's not that you were triggered 10 years ago. Sure, that's when it happened, maybe, or 20 years ago. But what you're carrying now is triggers connected to that event. And suddenly these people push these buttons and you triggered. Like this guy that suddenly is so angry with his wife, because she had good parents and he didn't. And suddenly there's this, it's not fair, so we trigger each other, which is, it's sad to say, but it's very true. We do, we and that's why God says iron sharpens iron. And in marriage, it's the best place to sort out. But we've got to then work together so that we can deal with our nonsense and our blockages and our triggers, and apply the blood of the Lamb onto the triggers so that you will not be triggered again. So that whenever there is a conflict, you will react as a mature person and not like a little child screaming and shouting and blowing up your cheeks and withdrawing and everything that we do, because the little one is triggered. So you carry that trauma with you until Jesus heals you. So you really need to work with whatever the trauma is that you've been through.
Yeah.
Okay.
When I'm working with people, a lot of people resist the word trauma or triggers. And so I basically kind of lay it out like, okay, well, God allowed this to happen in your life. And my guess is for a reason. And my Bible tells me it's for good. So can we look at it as an invitation for you to grow into his design for you that for some reason needed to, expand or to become stronger, or whatever it is, because really I mean, to think that God had nothing to do with allowing it is kind of it's kind of crazy. And so to think of it as an invitation to be an adult, I think is a really good way of looking at it.
And also to take the challenge, to not shy away from it and think, well, this is who I am, love me or leave me, A lot of us have that attitude, I'm made this way, and that you just got to love me or leave me. And we react immaturely. That's not a way to deal with this. It's you talk it through. And if both are calm and you don't raise your voices, you don't shout at each other, then you can, but if the triggers are all going all over the place, you just, it can be quite explosive.
Yeah. God's inviting me every day to something new.
And then also to remember that if things have happened to you, sure, it's bloodline, sure, there are things like that, but God wants to train you, and he wants to use the pain that you went through that you can help others to come out. Always, it's the kingdom. Always God's kingdom. So it's not wasted pain. It's not wasted pain. You can use that, the experience that you learned, and then what you've learned, you're able to share with others.
Well, and it's
Yeah.
so true because think about, like, both of us grew up with alcoholic fathers.
Mm.
This
Yeah.
might not exist had we not overcome and really wanted to find out, like, how to overcome that family issue. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so trauma does not have to be recalled because it's always remembered, even subconsciously. And I'm not talking consciously. I know what happened to me. I know the detail. It's subconscious. It's there. If I pray and things can be recalled. Recall is conscious. So it's when it comes from the subconscious mind into the conscious mind that I can have my healing. Because a lot of times I carry things, but I really don't know what happened to me. Can't remember. What did they do to me? And especially your survivors, they've been wiped, they've been drugged. I mean, it's horrible what they go through, and they can't always recall it, but it is there. But recall is conscious. Like, for example, we can recall you and I talking. I mean, we've got the session. We can recall some of the things that we heard. So trauma does not have to be recalled as such. Like, what I need to know, it's in my subconscious mind. I need to find my conscious mind, and I need to find it somewhere. I need to remember it, but I can't remember. So you need to move. Allow God to go. He's Lord over your subconscious mind, and everything has been recorded. It's written in God's book. It's there. And when the time is right and you've really started, God sees you've created capacity. You are now able to have it released. God brings it up and into the prefrontal cortex, where you then able to deal with it. Then you have the capacity. So start praying around the subconscious mind, and having God, give God permission to bring it forward. He's not going to force himself on you. If you're not ready, he will never force anything, to come forward and you're not ready for it. So he will prepare your heart as you deal with whatever happened in the past. Okay. The next one. Trauma is an unhealed wound, bottom line. That's it. It's something that I'm carrying with me into my present life, whatever age I am. It's sad that people get to the age of 70, 60, and they're still carrying the pain from their childhood with them. They've never had help. They didn't know they could get help, and they didn't speak to anyone about it. So it's that curse of silence that has held the secret
So
inside.
good. We should do
So
an entire thing on the curse of silence.
yes,
Because it
yes,
revictimizes people, it
yes,
keeps people in the lie, it keeps it activated. Yeah, that's
yes,
so good.
yeah, absolutely. And do you know there's altars of silence?
Oh, I
Because
didn't know that.
the more you have secrets in the family and secret organizations, and these are all secrets, you're not supposed to talk about it. Like with my dad's drinking, we were supposed to just keep quiet, zip, don't tell anyone. And it was inside of us. It wasn't like we were sat down and mom said, listen, guys, you never talk about dad's drinking. It was never spoken, but we just knew it. It was shame.
Yep.
That says you don't tell your friends. You don't bring your friends home. That they mustn't see your drunk dad. It's shameful.
It is so embarrassing. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
But what is sad is you carry this with you. So the curse of silence and the altars that get built in the family, because Freemasonry has this code of silence. So
Yep.
there's an altar that gets serviced, and it's just an inborn thing. Keep quiet. Keep quiet. Don't speak about it. And the enemy will try and keep your lips shut all the time until you go to the grave, because then he's won. Because the moment we speak out and we expose and reveal the truth will set you free. Then the enemy's lies loses his power.
Yep.
when you speak it out. But it's when we clamp, keep quiet, and we don't talk and we don't seek help, that the enemy wins. And we can't let him win, because Jesus has already won. It's a done deal. But we have to come in agreement with that, with the fact that it's done. It's done, Lord. And I have to come in alignment. So it's my will, and I'm understanding now, and I can deal with it.
So good.
Okay. Next one.
Next one.
Right. The body has a memory in the nervous system, not necessarily conscious. Again, a lot of the stuff that happened to us pre-birth, in the womb, all of that stuff where you didn't have words as a little toddler, you don't have words as a little infant, but it's still part of your nervous system. And so it's not necessarily in the prefrontal cortex, because you were not switched on yet. It didn't come online yet. It's still waiting to come online. You're too small, but it's still there. All right, the next one. So what I want to show you here, which is so interesting, is the first trauma. Let's say the first trauma is abuse that you experienced. You were stuck with a needle, you were pinched, you starved, there was sleep deprivation, whatever it is, but there was abuse. All right, the next one. The secondary trauma is when there's no secure attachment figure. So in other words, you left on your own. Nobody believes you. They're saying, my goodness, you have such an imagination, They break down what you're trying to reach out for help. And they're saying to you, oh my goodness, you honestly have got such an imagination. It didn't happen to you. Dad didn't rape you, but he did. And you're not heard. So the secondary trauma on top of that first trauma, that was where you were hit so hard, is there's no secure attachment. I don't have a mommy to run to, and a mommy that will believe me, and a daddy who's there for me, and that I can feel his strong arms, and he says, I will be there for you. And so that no secure, so if you're growing up with, and that's what mind control is all about, Carmen, is to wound a child and take away mommy and daddy, break all attachment, all bonding with your parents. They specifically, or with an animal where you try and get a bit of comfort. They break all of that so that you're totally alone. You're locked up in a cupboard, you put into a coffin and buried, all of that type of stuff is what you go through. So you have your first trauma that they give, but the secondary trauma on top of that is no secure attachment. So now you can imagine if this repeats, they hurt you, no comfort, hurt you, no comfort. Can you imagine how deep that wound will go? And that's what we're sitting with our survivors. They're stuck, they're hungry, they're cold, they're tired, and then suddenly the perpetrator becomes the hero.
Right.
The perpetrator that locked them up now comes to unlock them, and now suddenly you jump on this perpetrator, and he becomes a secure person. And that's trauma bonding.
Yeah,
that's what we call trauma bonding.
And it's the big T. It's not the little T.
The big T.
Yeah.
And now you run to that perpetrator as a savior, and that's what they want, because they want the bond attachment to that perpetrator so strong that you will never ever betray him. You'll be loyal all the way. You will turn all. When you have a choice to get away or the perpetrator, you're going to go to the perpetrator, and you don't understand why, but it's because of this, because they've set it up. And the guy, who is, people learn about him, his name is mentioned all the time in psychology and studies, and he knows the best, but he worked with Mengele.
Yep.
He did the programming with Mengele, and he saw what attachment was, and he decided, right, this is the way we've got to work against it. What God
Right.
put inside
I
naturally,
was just going to say that.
yeah, we've got to destroy that. And they
Amen.
work. They specifically plan the rituals around this,
Yeah.
so that the child will never feel secure, unless it's with the perpetrator.
Right. And it's
How sad
exactly
is
what a
that?
narcissist does naturally. They naturally knock you off center over and over
Yeah.
again. And so it is
Mm.
fascinating to me that they took what is natural, like you were saying.
Yeah.
It's mind-blowing. Do you have time
Yeah.
for a question? Somebody has a question. Okay. I'm going to put it up here for you. Her name is Cindy. How do I overcome the trauma of being assaulted by my sister twice? And I am the one blamed and shamed. I have not seen my sister since 2016.
Oh, that's so sad.
Horrible.
Cindy, okay, yeah, it's horrible. Cindy, I would say that this is in the bloodline, that there is sibling fighting in the bloodline. There's legal right for this to have happened. So don't just look at your sister as the first point of this thing that's happened. You need to go further back and pray around the generational stuff, that there was siblings in your family back, that where brothers didn't talk to each other, where sisters fought, horribly. And this is just a repeat, because there must be a foundation for this to have happened. And yeah, a lot of people will say, I have forgiven. So Cindy could say to us, I have forgiven my sister, although it's 2016, but restitution has not taken place, where she actually could have embraced, where they could have really got to a place of peace and where they can talk again. But this is something that you will find in the bloodline. It's something that needs to be dealt with. It needs to be repented of. And what I would do, Cindy, once you've repented and you've forgiven your sister, forgiveness isn't all of it, because you've got to be healed as well now emotionally. You need to sit down and write down the emotions you felt by being accused unfairly. You've had to carry the blame. You've been the scapegoat
Yep.
of what happened. You
No
were
way.
made the black sheep of what happened. And so you received that blame. It was put upon. It's like a yoke that's been placed upon you, and it's heavy, and it's not fair, and you're angry. So I want you to write down every emotion you felt when this happened, because you've got to take every one of these emotions, and you need to take them to the cross, and you need to ask God to release you from this yoke of emotions that you've carried all this time. Forgive your sister. Forgive your mom, your parents that had judged wrongly, and had put you in a place where you were unfairly treated. Now, the unfair treatment will bring a tremendous amount of anger, where it's put upon you, and then that's when you withdraw, because what else can you do? I mean, you're guilty. They say you're guilty, and you can't even explain yourself. So your voice is silenced. You're not being heard. And that voice being silenced will follow you in the job, wherever you go, in your marriage, wherever you go. It's going to follow, because it's there. There's a legal right for people for misunderstanding. And you've got to deal with it. You must get it, under the blood of the Lamb, so that you don't get fingers, accusations the whole time coming at you because you're carrying a label. Although it wasn't right, it wasn't fair, and it wasn't, it wasn't true what happened, you still need to carry on living. And you need to deal with it to make sure that it doesn't repeat, or your children don't get taken as the next victim in this, being unfairly treated. And you need to guard your heart. That, Cindy, I don't even know if you're married and if you've got children, but should you have, should you get married and have children, the tendency to want to pull one child ahead of the other one will be there, because it's in the bloodline, because we are now dealing with something that had happened, and it's a trigger on the epigenetics, and you don't want your children to inherit that. And so you don't want your siblings, your own children, to be fighting, amongst themselves. It's horrible. And so you need to take this upon yourself to say, Father, I'm going to find someone to pray with me to deal with this, because I don't want to carry it one step further. And just take it before the Lord as your responsibility. Then you start praying for your sister. And there was a lesson that we did, Carmen, on how to write a petition.
Yes, it's awesome. Yes.
Very powerful, very powerful. And I want to encourage you, Cindy, that you write a petition of what happened, what you felt, everything that you went through, what you saw with your sister, what you felt about her, and you start praying for her. And God can swing this whole thing around. Take this as an assignment to break this curse on the family. Once you're strong and you have capacity, then you take this to war and you deal with this in the family, so that your children will not suffer this same thing.
Right. And it layers, because I picture this goat that's the scapegoat, right? Just bloody and trying to get away from this feeling. But then what do? They go straight into silence, like you're not talking to them. So you open another altar of silence, and then they go flying into the unforgiveness altar, which is probably some sort of altar. I don't know. But those are all things that I know really affect and damage people. And so now they've put more blood on themselves.
That's right. And the other thing, Carmen, is the goat was sent into the wilderness.
Oh,
and the
that
wilderness,
too.
It's a hard place. It's a hard place, because that's where you stay until you've learned your lessons. It's hard.
I think I'm permanently in the wilderness. Oh my gosh. I'm always learning every day.
Yeah, true. Okay, next one.
All right.
So let's look at father wounds. And let's see. Father wounds is an unresolved trauma between the father and the child, when the father is absent or abusive. So we know a daddy represents the strong man in the family. He's got the muscles. Just to be with daddy, just to sit with daddy, to have daddy come and say good night, and it's clean and it's secure, and all that beautiful stuff between a father and a child. A daddy brings so much stability and anchoring in a child's world. So now daddy's absent or he's abusive. I'm afraid of daddy. I don't want to even touch him. That's as far away I want to get from him. It brings tremendous wounds. Okay, the next one.
Sorry, I'm taking notes on this one, because this is an important one. This is an important one for me.
Yeah. So the signs and the symptoms, if a father is abusive physically or verbally or sexually, gives the silent treatment when he disapproves and he wants to punish you, and then often critical of you, belittling your experience. I remember I was 13, it was around 12, 13, and you're very sensitive because your hormones are now, and you're looking at the boys and the guys, and they're looking at you, and you're very aware of all yourself. And I remember this love in my life. I mean, I'm a little child still myself, but the hormones are now on the roll. And so I get a letter of the alphabet which his name started with.
Oh.
And I put it on my watch. And so
you were so cute.
So we go, thank you. So we go with my dad. Now he's obviously doing his thing in the pub, and we get Coke and whatever there those days. And now we're sitting there, and he looks at me and he says, "And what's that thing on your watch?" I thought, oh no, he was not supposed to see this,
Yeah, the one time he's observant in your whole life.
Yeah. He says, "What's that thing there?" It's probably a little boy, is it? And who is this guy? And oh man, it was in a lounge setting, and there were people around, and I thought, oh no, I was so embarrassed. But he looked for an argument in front of people to shame me, to think he's going to teach me a lesson now. I'm 12, 13. It's normal. It's natural. And instead of him coming close and say, how can I protect you? This guy mustn't hurt you in any way. Just know dad's here. But I didn't know anything like that. I mean, he didn't know to do that either.
Right.
So this is the kind of things that happen to us, with fathers that are just not there for us. The wound that comes when a daddy puts that load upon you, you carry it for so long until Jesus can heal you. All right, the next one.
All right.
Where he makes you feel you are never good enough. You're just going to mess up your life. You're just going to get pregnant now. I mean, come on. I'm just starting out. I remember, it's quite sad. I had an uncle, and when we as little girls, and there were a lot of little girls in the family, brothers and sisters, and then cousins and so on, a lot of little girls, and we were all developing, going into womanhood in different stages. And he would come and actually pinch us and say, oh, has the bee stung you yet? It was so embarrassing.
Oh, that's horrifying.
What is it got to do with him? And I mean, he was not connected at all. He had a very hard father, a very cruel father. And so, in other words, you're just worthless, you're nothing. So everybody else is also worthless and nothing. And even in that tender place of developing as a little girl and going into this, stepping over the threshold and moving into womanhood, and instead of being protected and shielded and celebrated, you are shamed.
Yep.
I was ashamed for many years in this area because of what had happened to me.
Yes.
And that really brought such a blockage to my life, So I'm sharing straightforward things.
Yeah, I mean, I actually have a story really fast. I was like 15 years old. The whole family's at a pizza place. Dad orders a rum and Coke. It arrives. He says there's no rum in it. And so I was like, okay, I'll take the Coke. And this is exactly what is the worst part about it, is that you get so good at not doing anything because you know that no matter what you're going to do. So you think, oh, this one's not going to get me in trouble. I'm just going to take the Coke from him. That way he won't get charged for it. And I go to sip it and I'm like, oh no, there's rum in here. Do you know his first reaction was not, he got furious. He says, no, there's not. And who in their right mind would ever marry you? Like, where does that come from? Right? Of course, I already knew how amazing I was. So all I thought was, how weird is this guy? Like, how weird is that? But that's how I think the toughest ones are the ones that you go in innocently. And it's just like Cindy, who she said that she's not married and she hasn't had children. But like, here's this girl that's just getting beat up by her sister. And it's like, you're just going about life being joyful, putting a W on your watch. And next thing you know, you've got a big L.
Yeah. And a big wound. I mean, a big trauma. And it stayed, it stayed so
Oh, here
long.
I am telling the story years later.
Oh, yeah. And very vivid and very real, You can
almost the 50th anniversary of telling that story.
You can actually feel the pain, you can feel it. Of what it felt like, to be shamed like that. And so unnecessary. And so when fathers are physically absent for a long period of time, you don't even, you don't know how to relate to him because he's just not there. He's drunk, he's at the pub or at the work, and he's so little at home. When he's at home, he passes out, so it's just an absent dad. And so he's the source of fear. So it's a daddy that becomes a source of fear, which makes you preoccupied with the idea that your father will find out. So and then you start doing things on the quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember my dad, we were from this very religious, although he never went to church, but he had these rules, these churchy rules. And he said, women don't wear men's clothing. So we were not allowed to wear slacks, no jeans, no nothing. Can you think? I mean,
I would have cried for that.
Oh my goodness. So what I did was I would take if we would go somewhere and I'd ask his permission, Dad, I've got a friend that's got a party or whatever, and I'm going to go. Then I'd go in a dress. So he sees me leaving in a dress, but then I've got a plastic bag, and in the bag I've got some jeans that I'm going to wear. I'm going to put it on in the car or whatever, but he doesn't see it. So you start doing things in the quiet, wrongly, and not in the light. And you start learning to walk in the dark because your dad you can't trust. He's not safe. And that is what's so sad.
Yes.
You learn to become dishonest because of your circumstances. Because
it's a survival technique. Yeah.
Man. It's really why. I mean, it's not, men wore dresses. When you try and argue with him, but Dad, in the Bible, the men wore dresses. So what now?
Good luck with that one. God, if I ever tried to, oh my gosh, if I ever purposely got into something with my dad, that never went well.
Yeah. No, not at all. And he could feel that almost contempt I had for him, I had to be so careful because once he picked up on that, there would be explosions. So,
well, and that's really what it is him being invited by God to like figure out this contempt thing in you, and instead he creates it in his children.
Yeah. But I think he carried shame too, so he had his own dynamics.
Right.
And so it was just a big clash.
Well, you would have shame if somebody felt contempt for you all the time.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one. Mental problems. This is what father wounds will cause. Mental problems. You believe lies. It can be that you're depressed and you need to be on antidepressant pills. You can't sleep. You have nightmares. Low self-esteem. Perfectionism, where you're trying to be good enough and do things good enough so that you're worthy of your dad's love.
But also wanting to stay out of trouble.
Yeah. Being the good girl. Yeah. Boundary issues. You just don't know anything about a boundary. I mean, it's just not part of your world. Emotional outbursts. I mean, that's a big one because it's all built up. You're like a steam pot that's just exploding every now and then because there's so much stuff going on. And then rigged behavior. So, rigged behavior where you set things up. So, I mean, look at that little guy. You can just see he's sitting there and thinking, what next? What next is going to happen? And expecting a blow over the head. It's just awful. But this is what the father wounds can cause. Okay, next one, Carmen. Father wounds in sons may reflect in the craving for a male father figure, which is then where you turn to other men and you want a hug and you want comfort, and it can then go into the whole homosexual world. Or intense anger to the father resulting in negative self-view. So you hate yourself, but you also hate the father. So, it's because you're not supposed to be growing up in his image.
Right.
And you just
so
want to be like your dad.
Oh my God.
You just don't want to be like him. So you would rather then associate with your mom and take on the feminine stuff because everything in you rejects and hates manhood. And you don't want to have any part of that. So you rather identify with mom And that's where the feminine stuff comes in, and that opens the door if the enemy takes you from there. But it starts with the wound. So, and then also there'll be sexual stuff on the bloodline that's going to, be able to be carried across.
And I would add that that's from a boy's point of view. Are you going to do girls next?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
then I'll leave it alone.
Next one.
Because I was going to share how I thought about that. Yeah, because I definitely became a tomboy because.
Okay. Yeah. All right. And then father wounds in daughters, a pattern of unhealthy relationships from romantic.
Got that one too.
There it is. Yeah. So you don't know how to be loved. You don't know, because what you saw was this man, or dad, that was just not there for you. And you saw the fighting between mom and dad, and he was also hitting on you. And so you draw the wrong men. You draw someone just like your dad. So if your dad's been abusive or absent or whatever, the spirit draws spirit. So that's the kind of spouse you're going to draw and bring into your life. And you just say, how did I do it? I got away from my dad, but I walked straight into this. So your marriage is just a replay, of your childhood. Okay, the next one. If they have an avoidant attachment, which my dad was avoidant and I became avoidant as well. And so if they have an avoidant attachment, they grow up struggling to trust men. I didn't trust. And I mean, I share this, when we talk on marriage and things, and Roly would say, oh, he loves me. And he wants to just give me a hug and come here. I want to give you a hug. And then I would pull back and I would look at him and say, what do you actually want from me? You just want one thing. You just want to use me now. So it was so difficult to trust. I just couldn't trust. And then you may want to avoid intimacy and close connection, because to be intimate with someone, you've got to be secure. You have to trust.
Yep.
You have to be able to give your heart. There is no way you can go into the act of intimacy and you fighting this inside, because everything in you pushes back. Right. You're just backpedaling. And then you get, the marriage is a frustration for both. And it can just end in such a mess.
Horrible.
Right, let's look at the next one. And then I want you to share your story.
Okay, hold on. There's a question that somebody had that Deborah brought up. My daughter is turning 12 soon. I've had it on my heart to do some sort of bloodline cleansing for her, but I'm very imperfect and I have not had anyone to help me sort my bloodline out. Can I still do a type of deliverance on her while I still have authority? Wow, we are getting amazing questions.
Interesting. Very good questions. Very good. Yeah, I would say for sure. But I really want to encourage mom to first sort out yourself. First, go and get your cleansing. And there are people that can help you, that be able to work through your bloodline with you. How to identify. So if you work through our minimum requirements, because we've actually broken it down to people that are in a bit of a rush, because like this child's birthday is coming up and she wants to help her daughter. So if you can work through the minimum requirements, which won't take you that long, but you work through that, you've got enough to work on. You know exactly what to do, how to identify things on the bloodline, and where the prayers are that you need to find, that you pray through. So unfortunately, there's not a shortcut. Oh, you're in Cape Town. Awesome. We can send you the people that we've got here in South Africa to help you. Definitely. So you can just send an email to my PA and she will send you the details. So we'll
maybe put in the subject line that it's from this show, so that she'll know and remember protect, because it's not a name and it might be different from the email.
Yeah, good. That's good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. The next one. If they have an anxious attachment, they may seek intense closeness. So it's almost like you are absorbing the person. Like, people say, I feel you smothering me. I don't have space. You're not giving me space. But it's because of her anxious. She's got fear, and she's so worried you're going to leave her, and she's so worried you're going to go off with someone else. And so when they have that anxious attachment, they may seek intense closeness. And if men have got this, Carmen, we have prayed with couples where the guys have got this, where there's fear, jealousy, insecurity, big time, where they want to have sex 3 times a day, if not more, but a minimum of 3 times a day, like meals, just to make sure you're mine.
And I've actually seen guys do that. And I've also seen guys purposely push someone away to hurt them so they cry so that they have proof of love.
Exactly. Yeah. They will use that weakness.
Yep.
That attachment weakness that is in their partner. Oh, that is so painful.
And I guess we can be both avoidant and anxious, because I'm definitely, or I used to be both. Yeah.
Both. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's true. That's true. So I'm going to put all these things, and then how you work with your spouse later on, and how to understand each other so that we don't, that this doesn't cause us to separate, that we can actually work towards unity and the godly marriage, and not split apart and have the pain, So they seek that intense closeness and reassurance from men. And that could be that even before marriage, they become promiscuous.
Yep.
Because they just want to be wanted. They flirt, and flaunt themselves. But it's all this: I need closeness. I need to know you love me. Do you love me? Do you love me? All the time, that pushing inside. So they may seek constant validation from men, which can be, end up in a serious situation. You can become a prostitute, and that's really the thing that's driving you. It's not the money. It's this brokenness inside of you.
Right.
So, and as you said, very good, is that the men then can abuse that wound.
Mm-hmm.
How cruel is that? To make them feel, okay, she does love me, but it's because he's insecure.
Yes.
And, they're playing on each other. It's horrible.
And it's always a perfect match. It's always, it's like there's science there, it's kind of like 2 different electrons getting together.
Yeah. And how to overcome father wounds. Let's just see. Carmen, is there something you wanted to share about you and your dad?
Oh, no, I was just saying that, like, because of all of the way that he was, which of course was because of the way his mom was, I can clearly see, the domineering grandmother, and how much he hated that. So he then hated women because he attached it to, that's a female thing, not realizing there's overbearing men as well. But, and so then that turned into, women drivers, or women this or women that. And so it was a complete divide in our family. And of course, what did he end up having? All girls. God is not playing. He's inviting my dad.
Yeah. Amazing.
But I do think that could cause somebody to be a tomboy, then also go to that gay thing again.
Yes, I agree. Because that also drove me into becoming the tomboy.
Yeah.
And thinking I'm going to win my dad that way.
Yep.
Because he had this thing for the boys, my brothers were like more special than me. And so I tried to compete.
Right.
And so there was this competition between the male and female, which is a Greek god curse.
Yes.
Family. So when I realized that, I said, oh, Father God, what have I done?
Yeah,
so there was more repentance to happen there.
These Greek gods are real. They are not.
No, they are very real. And then they say when a husband and a wife are having a fight on earth, and they say, oh, the gods are fighting in heaven. So it was like we were, reflection that we should be of our God, the Father, but then they use these other gods,
Right.
Okay,
Right.
so how do we overcome our wounds, Common? Recognize that you have that father wound. So the
Yep.
important thing is, okay, Lord, I realize, I see it. You're showing me things, you helping me see the bigger picture. Do not deny or suppress or avoid the pain, the loss, and the anger surrounding this wound. And that's why it's important to be journaling and then to write down your emotions. What
Yep.
did you feel when your dad was absent, abusive, or whatever he was? How did you feel about your dad? And what were those emotions? And what happened in your life as you were growing up? Did you start throwing yourself at guys? Did you flirt? Did you? Because basically he should be protecting you, but now because he's not there,
The
now
opposite.
you're running to other guys and you're getting into other trouble in relationships because you have needs. So yeah, it's so sad how it could be so different. Right, the next one. Learn to love yourself. Big one. So you did learn that, Carmen. That was
Mhm.
something that was a safety for you. You had that. Okay, I didn't have that at all. So learn to be grateful for things. And that's how you start getting out of the victim mindset, is when you start looking at, I've got toothpaste on my toothbrush. I've got toilet paper. you know, I've got all these little things that I can be so grateful for. If I look at in prison, how horrific it is. How that, well, South African prisons are bad and how they are treated, and the women there, the women are very hard, and how they would try and dry their clothes in the winter now. They don't have dryers like we do. So they all hang, those that are in and they are piled. There are two women sleeping on a single bed
It's disgusting.
because there are no beds. There are too many people in prison. And so what they would do is they'd wash their clothes and then hang it up in the shower, because where else do you hang it up? But there's no sunlight, there's no wind, there's nothing. So when you use the bathroom, the smell of the fungus and the mildew and
Old.
the
Yeah.
stuff on the clothes, it is horrific. Then suddenly the announcement comes into the courtyard. So there's sun time. They're going to have some sun. So what they do is they put on the wet clothes
Mm.
and they go and sit in the sun and try to get their clothes dry. I mean, I'm working with people that have been arrested now, and it's just so sad. And just hearing the suffering of practical shampoo, things like that. We've got so much to be grateful for.
Yeah.
And you start practicing gratefulness in the little things. Start with the little things and just be grateful. When you put your head on a pillow, you've got a bed to sleep on, um, just be grateful for what you've got. And then that starts breaking that victim mindset. Treat yourself with kindness. Be kind to yourself and compassion when speaking about yourself. Because, I would always be broken down and criticized, mom and dad. And so what I would find myself doing is, if I can't do something right, or I trip, or I make a mistake, I'll say, "Oh, you stupid girl." I'd be repeating what my parents spoke over me. And I thought, what on earth? I'm breaking myself down because your words create. So what am I creating? That really hit me. And it's hard work. It's hard work to stop doing these wrong things, speaking about yourself and actually being kind to yourself. And then take care of your physical health. Make sure that you're looking after your temple. You're the temple of the Holy Spirit. Make sure you're eating healthy, that you're exercising, that you're not filling yourself with a whole lot of junk.
Yep.
So we really need to look at what God has given us and say, "Thank you, Father. Thank you that I have a body that works."
Mm-hmm.
If I see someone with a urine little bag because the
Yeah.
bladder doesn't work and they have to, then I think, "Father, thank you for my bladder
Yeah.
that's working."
Amen. That's a big
I mean,
one.
little things that we take for granted, but honestly, it is precious how God's put our bodies together, and things happen, and how our bodies stand up and start fighting. It's amazing. So
Yeah.
we've got so much to be grateful for. All right, the next one.
Yeah. Can I just interject one thing? Radical self-care and the idea of grace, the way it's described in the Bible, I don't remember where, but it says to lavish and grace. And I just kept saying that to myself over and over again, because we all do make bad choices. And your tendency, through probably Satan's, power of the airs, your tendency is to give yourself a hard time about it. But if I was able to get to that graceful state of like imagining myself lavishing, I mean, that's like, I'm in a spa. I'm like, that's a big word, lavish. And
Yes.
so he really wants us to have that grace. And then too, the radical self-care, like you're saying, it changed my life. I did 1 week of it, and I had a huge transformation. I didn't do anything for anyone else. It was just me. And it was very healing.
That's very good to know. That's really good to practice, to put it into practice. Yeah, awesome. Okay, so seek counseling support if you cannot tackle this on your own. So there are really some good counselors out there that would help and give you good advice. Next one. Don't be a strategy for healing wounds in sons and daughters. So it's both now, sons and daughters. Don't be like your father. Of course, you don't make it in a vow, because then you're going to be exactly like your father. So just be careful on that one. But you've seen your dad, and you've seen how you mustn't be if you're a male and you're going to be a father one day. You don't want to also pick up his mannerisms and things, which I did. How dad would deal with conflict, I took it on. And so I don't want to be like my dad. I don't want to sound like, the negative stuff of my dad. Shake off fathering practices that are not godly.
Amen.
Look for secure partners, someone who is honest, open, and trusting. And so, you really need counsel when you're looking for a spouse. That is the biggest decision in your life. And you need to have safe people that you trust, that can pray and that can really tap in and hear God for you, to help you listen. Because that's where we have made so many mistakes and married the wrong person. As you said, the narcissist. In the beginning, they all wonderful and
love bomb.
say the right words and all of that. It looks perfect, and you're so in love. And this is it. This is the man I want to marry. And then it turns out it's such a disaster. So it's really important to get healthy counseling here for both of you, and someone who can discern and be able to see this guy that you want to marry, or this girl you want to marry, what's really going on in their lives. All right, the next one.
And look for joy too, man. Too many miserable people.
Joy. Oh yeah, true joy, not the play one. Okay, so mother wound is when women are unable to offer the child emotional support during the nurturing period. So that is when mom is depressed and she's on tablets and drugged and whatever, or she's an alcoholic. So there's more on mother wounds, which we've touched a lot more on the father. But, we've done a lot of the mothering issues. A Journey to Freedom has got that whole teaching section on mothering, where you'll get a lot of, I didn't want to repeat again. All right, the next one. I think we're at final word. The bond with both of our caregivers is important, but we often rely on our dads to keep us safe, protect us, and offer us advice. So when we don't have this figure to rely on, we develop a father wound. So, many times people are in denial and they're not really connected to their own emotions and pain. But what you need to realize is you needed a dad for safety. You needed a dad that would protect you if you go out, and he must check, are you dressed appropriately? Are you going out to lure guys? Because then he should call you back and say, go and change. He's a male. He knows a male brain.
Right.
And so he should be really caring and looking after. And then also giving advice and that type of thing. So when you don't have this, if you didn't have this growing up, know you have a father wound. Don't go into denial. Don't, push it away. Please realize this. This is truth. This is truth. And when you realize I'm sitting with a father wound, then you know, okay, I've got to start working on this. And I'm going to look at how did I attach with him? And how did I feel when he wasn't there for me, when he didn't protect me? So journaling brings a lot of things to the light. And I know that you stand for journaling as well.
Oh,
where
I
you
totally,
work with
yes,
people.
every day.
Yeah, yeah. All right, the next one, Carmen. Father wounds can significantly impact how we see ourselves and others. We may see ourselves as not good enough and have a low sense of self-worth because your dad gives you value. That's what the word father means. It means he gives you significance. You go to the dictionary and look up the word father. He who gives you significance. So can you imagine if he wasn't around? He was this absent father, abusive father, and the message you got, I'm not good enough, as his little girl. I have a tremendous low sense of self-worth because he's supposed to give me my value and my worth. And he didn't. So I had to try and find it. I had to try and see, why do I feel this way? Why is all the stuff so heavy on me? It's because of the father wound. And then we also might struggle to trust others, or alternatively throw ourselves into their arms to try and make up for the love we didn't receive from our dads, causing a pattern of unhealthy relationships. So that's where we get promiscuous and flirt and jumping in and out of bed. And we think that's making us great as women. And the sad thing is that it's just the daddy that didn't love. That's the bottom line. So when Roly is going to finish with the series, he's going to teach on fathers who do not step up. And he's going to spell out from the word what will be the results in the family. We've looked at it. I've tried to keep it very practical, by the heart, close to the heart. But Roly's going to wrap it up for us, this series, when he does his final word. All right, the next, I think we're done. The next one. While it can be difficult to recognize and heal from the father wound, it's reassuring to know that it is completely possible. So don't ever think, I'll never get healed.
Right.
I'm always going to be stuck in this prison that my dad put me in. No, then you're a victim. No, Jesus has paid the price. He's done it all. And through the blood of Jesus and through the love of the Father, you can be completely restored. You can be healed. And by learning to love yourself, seeking the support of a trained and licensed professional, well, those that know what they're doing, don't go to somebody that, you can try this and you can try that. Rather get to someone.
What happened to me was worse than what happened to you. I had one of my clients tell me that's what her therapist.
Oh my. Yeah, that's really a victim. That's really being stuck in the prison, eh? Yeah. All right, be kind to yourself. Learning from the unhealthy patterns of the past, you can overcome your father wound. It is possible. There's nothing that is impossible for our God. All right, and I think how trauma affects this is a wrap up here, how trauma affects your physical health. It's important for us to know that. Two people are in the same accident, so they're both in the same car.
So sorry.
The one person has no effect. Okay, roll it. The next one. The one person has no after effects, but the second person has major back pain. And why does he come out of it worse? Because he's coming with a history of trauma. So if the person has already got trauma and you're in an accident, you're going to have more trauma piled on. So you're going to have it much worse than the one who never had trauma, who had a secure attachment, can get through accidents and traumas sailing. because they don't have the history. And so look out for sicknesses that you're carrying. Your body is suffering. Then right, I must. What they've found now is that there's a very strong connection between trauma and sickness.
Mm-hmm.
But the sad thing is they don't teach doctors this. Those that are on counseling, they know about trauma. But then when you work with a survivor, then okay, their immune system is so weak, and they need
Their
to learn
thyroids are a mess. Yeah.
Yeah. And also, they just eating wrong food. They're eating comfort food.
Mm-hmm.
And so much more things can go wrong just because of the trauma. All right, so now we see this person has backache, has childhood trauma that makes her nervous system more rigid, because you're already like this. I mean, I get into a car, and because my dad's driving was horrific with his and I'm sitting in the front, and my foot is on the brake next to the driver. I'm like pushing the dashboard because he's got to go slower, and just as watching him and seeing, oh my goodness, he's going to hit the bridge or whatever. So when I get in a car, then I had this, I'm already sitting tensed, waiting for an accident to happen. Something's going to go wrong. And if we do have a bash there, I'm already all tensed, and it's even a double whammy. Then it's more damage physically to my body, which I wouldn't have had if I was secure.
Right.
Are you with me? So we both in the same accident. The one has a history of trauma, the other one doesn't. And they come off the same impact differently. And the difference is trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're open for the consequences of the accident. All right, the next one. This is just a little illustration that shows you a blade of grass and a straw. The person with the trauma is the straw. The person that is free and had secure attachments, no trauma, is the blade of grass. And so when you apply force to both of these, the blade will bend, but the straw will break. And so that just gives you an idea. If there's trauma, you're rigid, you're tight, your adrenaline is pumping all the time because you're watching behind your back, You're just so aware of things that has gone wrong. All right, the next one. We very nearly finished now. Relationship between stress and illness. My nervous system and immune system and hormonal apparatus are one super system. And this we need to know. It's not my nervous system on its own, and that's where the trauma is, and then my immune system on its own, and my hormones on their own. No, it's a system. It's a closed system. And when I repress anger, for example, I'm going to impact my immune system. So any negative emotions that I'm not dealing with, and wiping with the blood of the Lamb, nailing it to the cross, I am going to have diseases manifest in my body.
Or weight. You could gain weight even, because that's what happens to me. I either lose weight or gain weight.
Yes. And it's also emotional, connected to the emotion. So you eat emotional eating to comfort. I mean, that can happen, and then you put on the weight, and then you reject yourself, and then you're in a crisis because of your weight. I mean, this cycle all the time. All right, the next one. How to start resolving trauma. So let's wrap up here. In childhood, we learn that to be acceptable, we must comply. We suppress our will, needs, and our own perspective just to serve others. So it's like you don't have a will. You must just do what they say. Keep the peace. You've got to comply. And so we never learn to say no. And that is, it must be an authentic no, where I've weighed it, I've watched, I see it's not going to work, and I strongly in my heart and with my will, I make that choice and I say, no, I'm not going to be part of this. I'm not going to allow this. This is not right. Whereas as a child, never learn to say no, they can just walk all over your boundaries, rape you, hit you, abuse you, make you work like a slave, and you just think this is the way it's got to be. I have no choice. But you do. You need to find your no. God must help you find a godly no. And that is a protection, because nobody else is going to say that no for you. You could have a spouse that one day will say that no for you, because some people just find it difficult to say no. But you need to learn, and you need to have the freedom and allow yourself permission. Say no. I'm not going to be abused. All right, the next one. So a child's brain cannot handle an attachment void. This is a very important point, because we've just dealt with all the attachments now. And now we see that a child cannot handle the void, the emptiness, the vacuum. So if there's just nothing, the child will do anything to get attention, to attach, even if it's through sex. At least he wants to touch me. At least he wants to be with me. At least I'm doing something for him. The child would rather do that than sit with a vacuum between them, him and his caregiver. So this is called imprinting, where the child cannot handle this, but can then have a trauma bond, because it's better than a zero bond. All right, the next one, Carmen. If there's someone that I can turn to for support, protection, is there someone that I can turn to for support, protection, or help? Our culture today causes disconnection, isolation, and loneliness. And then, I mean, you know, we are sitting with tablets, we're sitting with phones, we don't talk. We don't talk anymore. It's a different world. And so the question is there someone in your life that you can turn to, that you trust with your whole heart, that you love, even if it's not your parents, but somebody, an aunt, or granny, or somebody that can just help you solve all the questions, give you some answers, give you some direction, someone that you can turn to and that loves you with unconditional love. It's so important. We need that. We can't have a vacuum. Okay, the next one. A child's primary connection should be with the parents, but children connect to other people, even adults, long before they can handle it. And so there must be someone that you can find. I know of a couple that got divorced, and the mother is totally disconnected. She is totally avoidant completely. So she had no connection with her children. And the father was there as well. He was working and away. And so the children were just like in a vacuum, and it was awful for them. And then got to a point where she then committed adultery a few times, and he divorced her. And then it's now the whole fight around the children. And they don't feel safe with mom. So they don't like to be her turn when it's her turn to be with her. The dad has actually won their hearts back. And he's remarried a fantastic young lady, and she is giving her everything, and she's safe. Wow. So, for example, Carmen, I want to ask you, when you were a little girl growing up, did your mom or someone, a big sister or someone, prepare you for womanhood by packing a little parcel for you with the necessary goodies for should your period start at school?
Oh, yes. My mom was amazing. I was really lucky. Wow. And I think that's what really helped center me, is that my mom was just pure love.
Yeah, that is amazing, Carmen. That is amazing. I didn't have that. So, yeah. I mean, I had my big sisters, but they had left home. So I was basically on my own between the boys. And my mother was just working such long hours. She didn't have the capacity, or didn't think, I don't know what it was. But I had to go looking for my own bra. My first bra I couldn't wait to hear the bra. I couldn't wait for this bra story.
After your uncle came over and said, "Did you get stung by a bee yet?"
That's right. But I went looking for my own. I saved my own money, and I went into the shop and looking for fitting my own bra. And I'm just looking at my grandchildren now and how beautifully they're being supported, how beautifully they're being helped. And I'm just thinking, oh man, you girls just don't realize. But I thank God, because we've gone further than me. They've at least got mommies that know and understand and that have learned the stuff and that pack their bags. So anyway, in this case scenario of the two children, there's a little boy and a little girl, and the father divorced, remarried, and this lady has now done all the effort of packing the little girls all her goodies in case it happens at school. But it doesn't come from her mommy. It comes from this other lady who was nurtured herself and understands what it is to not be in a vacuum and to have someone that's full, that space with love and
Yes.
acceptance, So it is so, so important that if your parents aren't there for you, that there is somebody else
Yes.
that you can turn to.
Yes.
And I know for some of us it's difficult, but
well, and this is why I have such a heart for people, because my mom was so amazing, but she got cancer when I was 13, and of course was dying for the next 20 years or whatever. And so it was, or not 20 years, she was gone in 10, but that left us just with my dad. And how I kept that alive was I liked to nurture. So I liked babysitting kids, and I love, and I get so much crap on social media for being nice to victims who don't behave well or go do something. Like, for instance, Madison is, been arrested and it's public, and people are being very ugly and like, hey, your friend that, whatever. But just because somebody is loving to other people doesn't mean they're responsible for what those people choose to do. I helped people out of jail who went and stole and went back to jail. But most of them didn't, because they finally had somebody to share that nurturing, loving, consistent place to go where, if you're not behaving well, I'm not going to, invite you over to my house. But if you are, then you will be.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. And if I think now, eventually there was an aunt that came into my life, and she taught me everything. She took me under her wing, and it was so special. I had such a good bond with her, So there are people around that we can turn to, that we feel safe.
I think everyone has somebody. And also, if you don't, I do believe if you cry out to God for someone, he will connect you with that nurturing person. Yeah.
Okay, the next one. We should really be near the end. A greatest impact on dealing with trauma will come by wanting to know why you are like that. I wanted to know why. Why do I act like that? Why do I feel like that? And being in godly relationships. So that's when you can feel safe enough to say, listen, this is what I felt. When I shared with this couple, it was so wonderful to hear them sort it out amongst each other, and why he felt like this, because he was regressed went back to that little boy that had to be quiet and be good and, not have fun and not have joy. And here she was, and how they saw the separation and the anger between them, and then just could sit down because they both know God, and said, Father, what is this about? Help us. And the Lord did. And to understand the attachment differences. So I was so excited about that, because that's good fruit, for them to have taken that. Yeah. All right. Next one. All right. So what is trauma? If you look at this, oh dear, it was supposed to be animated, but the green line is the way you grow. And the blue line is the emotional growth, in your joy bucket, your joy. So physically you grow into adulthood. You see the green line going up and you grow into adulthood. Whereas the blue line, the emotional bucket, um, the joy bucket is just not filling up at all. So your bucket stays small and there's no joy. And real godly joy that comes from a child that has just got this joy spontaneously inside of them. And so the difference between the size of your joy bucket and the age of where you are, that difference is called trauma. Low joy capacity and life is painful. So I just thought this is part of Journey to Freedom, and you can do the whole course. It's Journey to Freedom, book 8, book 8 of the course. And then you're going to get a lot of detail there, which I would want to suggest because I do stages of development. I do the brain. I think we did it together, Carmen. It's part of your
Yes.
35
Yeah, we did. 'Cause
sessions.
I even remember this type of graph. I don't know it was the same one.
Yeah.
But what I
Yeah.
would say too is that difference between the green and the blue is the invitation, and how the invitation shows up is that you'll be triggered.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's true. That's true. Okay, I think we got an amen now.
All right.
Oh, no. No, I'm going to stop here because our time has really run away with us
Yeah,
tonight.
you've definitely
And
gone for 2 hours.
We'll carry on. Yeah, we'll carry on with this next time, and then
Okay.
we'll also get Roly to do the wrap up. Roll, you're going to
Yes.
come pray for us. Yeah.
Yes, please. And then also, are you guys available next Sunday?
Yes, we are.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
So then we'll
nothing but-
finish it up next Sunday.
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, how do you pray over this? Father, we thank you we can come before you tonight, and we can come and bring all of this before you. And we understand, Father, that many things have happened in our lives that we don't really know, and we don't know why. But the fact of the matter is that you know what happened. And Father, everything that happened, you were fully aware of. And you tell us that everything that happens to us will have a favorable outcome, will have a purpose, will have a result which will be beneficial for the kingdom of heaven. And if we understand that, then what we can do is understand that we must take what we've had, take what we've learned, and that we must make a decision to change our lives and come in alignment with you and come in alignment with your purposes for us, because there is someone outside there that needs our help and our experience and the life that we've been through and everything that we've been through. We will be able to help them in a unique way. Father, I understand that unless we've had these experiences, however harsh and however hard they might be, the reality is only when you have the experience can you speak into someone else's life with confidence and with an understanding of how to listen to the Holy Spirit and how to apply that knowledge with wisdom and with understanding. Father, otherwise our words are just empty vessels that go out that will sound nice, but will have no effect whatsoever. And so every person that's wounded tonight, hurt, and has trauma, Father, I apologize on behalf of everyone that's done the hurting for the fact that we've never stood in stewardship of that you gave us. Father, you wanted us to take stewardship, to take ownership, to walk in a way which was in alignment with you, to be an ambassador for your world. And so, Father, we come and we repent of that. But we ask now, Father, that every person that has been wounded will take those wounds and identify them and deal with them, Father. Because in the process of becoming whole, they will become useful for the kingdom of God. And Father, you ask us to be light. And the only way we can be light is to talk through that we have in a way which releases other people to walk in victory. In Yeshua's name, amen.
Amen.
Amen. Beautiful and so true. That was convicting. Thank you so much, both of you. And thank you, everyone, for being here. And we will be here next week, same time. And y'all have a wonderful end of your weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Too.
Bye.
Thanks, Carmen. Take care.